Tosha Global Analytics. Please like and subscribe.
Greetings, salutations, and howdy to you all. I'm KT with Tosha Global Analytics. Tosha Global Analytics was created to provide insight and foresight into the street-level impacts of macroeconomics, real estate, and finance trends, and the policies that shape them. So here we are in the final part of this series, part number 4. In part 1, we covered the salient facts of the properties, some terminology, definitions, and some insight into the market, as well as the general strategy, the measure used to define the return, and describe the process. So then in part 2, we looked at the repositioning strategy, some issues we considered within modeling the return, and then we moved forward toward the purchase and forecast of the eventual sale. In part 3, we covered and compared the projected numbers and the actual returns from the eventual sale. And in part number 4, we're covering what happened with the asset when it sold again in 2021. It had sold in 2027 from our company and then was sold again in 2021. So buckle up, buttercups, because if you thought a planned 23% IRR was a high return when it was sold by our company, you ain't seen nothing yet. Okay, just to disclose to you kind of what I knew and what I had to recreate in order to show you this particular model. I knew the financials when the asset sold to the new owner in 2017 because I provided them. I know the T12 finances. Again, that's the finances for a time period of 12 months. And what the marketing package from 2021 showed when it sold again. So I have that as bookends to two T12s. I know all about the financing that was used when the asset was purchased in 2017 and what the penalty would be at the time of sale in 2021. Lastly, I know what upgrades were done to the asset in that interim as they were really disclosed as part of the marketing package. So if in using all of what I already knew, there are only a few things I didn't know, and it's really just in the middle of the holding period. So, but because of what I know, I can really safely project the income in that interim 2 to 3 years because of what happened to, at the beginning and at the end. As such, I can confidently show you here what the return was and have a high confidence that the IRR I show you is very close at the very least. So first, let's review what I showed you with the 2013 underwriting projection and the results from 2017 at the time of disposition of the asset, which, just to reinforce this again, disposition means sale, as in dispose of. And then we'll roll into what I have for the 2017 through 2021 time period, which was, again, the acquisition, hold, and disposition by the firm that bought the asset from us in 2017. So here's the 2017 DCF. As I covered last time, the NOI, that's net operating income, over the holding period was a bit different than the projection I noted in the last video. There was some difference between the projection and the actual. And, by the way, this includes 3 months worth of income in the 4th year. So that a prorated 3 months worth. So the prepayment penalty of nearly $2 million is shown here, and that's because it was sold earlier than when the time window on the mortgage ran out, which is at 5. So there's a 7-year mortgage. But anyway, the actual disposition price of $20.4 million is shown there. You can look at it this way. The real selling price is effectively different. Again, without sharing too many details here, the adjusted selling price to reflect the penalty is about $2 million higher because of the penalty. And also we have disposition costs, but that effectively makes what the property did a higher return than what the investor got because of having to effectively pay for that penalty. So we have that quote actual unquote IRR. It relies on the stated disposition price of $20.4 million, and that gives us a return of 19.1% IRR with the adjusted selling price that includes the discount of the prepayment penalty. If you exclude that, the IRR should be 25.3%. So lastly, I also show you the unleveraged IRR. Okay, so now moving forward, in 2017, they purchased it, and here's what they did for upgrades. Inside the apartments, they redid the kitchens with new cabinet doors and hardware. They painted the boxes so everything ended up nice and white. They put in new quartz countertops and new stainless appliances throughout. And these appliances were right about 5 years old about the time they replaced it, by the way. So they took out the black appliances, put in stainless. They also put in new light fixtures and finishes. By the way, in the community in general, they painted all the exteriors of all the buildings. They redid all the roofs on all the buildings. They refinished the pool in the patio area. They added a summer kitchen, updated the dog park, really expanded that, put in artificial turf, added some picnic furniture in different places and barbecue areas. They added a car care area. And they replaced many of the fitness center machines, updated the business center a little bit. So anyway, that's a lot of investment, actually. It actually equates to about 2.5 times what was spent in 2013. And there wasn't a lot of inflation in that 4.5 year period. However, as you're about to see, the investment was well worth what was spent here. So before we dive into the final numbers for the closing of this disposition, please like and subscribe and help my channel out. Appreciate that. Okay, here we go with the quick repeat of the 2017 disposition where the property was purchased from us. Again, those solid returns. And now to reveal the numbers from the 2021 disposition. Wow, the numbers are really interesting. The cash flow starts where we left off in 2017. The property was owned for 54 months or 4.5 years. I show the incremental increases in cash flows over the first 4 years because of the rehab, et cetera. And I include 6 months of the cash flow in year 5 in the totals. Okay, the equity and the rehab costs included in that equity, that's all shown. The mortgage, which I'll circle back to in a minute, to have the particulars on that. The recorded purchase price in 2017 is shown, the disposition price in 2021, the selling costs for that, and the prepayment penalty for the mortgage. So now, regarding this mortgage, it was done under a unique program. Specifically, it was, and here's a quote, using Fannie Mae's Green Rewards program at a 65% loan to value with a 10-year fixed rate term and 5 years of interest-only payments. So they sold near the end of the interest-only period, just like our firm did. See a pattern there? Their LTV was a bit lower than ours because ours ended up being effectively 76%. So they may have made more had their leverage been a little bit higher, but the 5 years of that IO is what we call interest only when working in the field, by the way. So that IO benefited them and really helped the return. Without doing a discrete analysis, it'd be hard to know whether they could have made more or not. It just didn't really seem like it was appropriate because it's supposed to show what they did. Well, I guess I need to show you some returns for that next transaction. Here you go. Here's the returns. Just like the 2017 disposition, we had a payment penalty that hurt the selling price. Including the paying of that, the IRR was still 25.1. That's incredibly well done, truly. Now, if you include the prepayment penalty so that you can see what the selling price would have been, the IRR then pops to 29. So, of course, that's not a realized return, but it does show you what the property would have done. Also, the unleveraged IRR is solid at 16.9. So it's great returns and it's well executed all the way around. Now, I happened to work this up and, I had to do a bunch of searches and go obtain a bunch of data that I didn't happen to have. And I had all my numbers, and then I lost all my searches for the asset and had to go recreate them. My browser crashed, and for some reason, a lot of those tabs were gone. So when I went and redid the searches, I found another link to the seller's website where they talked about the sale of this property. And embedded in that was the following statement. We prepared a successful value-add investment strategy and were able to deliver our investors a tremendous IRR of over 25%. And it was like, wow, I modeled this to almost exactly what they had done and what was delivered. Of course, I got a model that would be comparable or maybe even superior to the one they did with just a lot of incredible features. So, It's just really a great confirmation after the fact that I was absolutely on target. So, all right, well, let's analyze this market a tad more because, you got to put it in context a little bit. So, let's look at the environmental factors in the economy and the market that impacted the success of this asset. Okay, first, cap rate and cap rate valuation. So using the year five income, since we only used half the year, let's go ahead and just use year five. We can project that the value is right about where it should be in relation to the cap rates for this property of this type at that time. So just an FYI, stabilized multifamily assets in prime markets typically have lower cap rates, meaning their cash flows return a higher valuation at the same dollar amount because the cap rate is lower. So value add assets, by the way, they generally have higher cap rates, so they return lower valuations, and there's some inherent risk involved, etc. So anyway, this asset being in suburban Jacksonville, this is not considered a prime market. The cap rates for Class B apartments here are 1% to 2% higher than some other markets in Florida. The 2017 sale was around a 6% cap, and that was right in line with the market. Local captures property type were between 5 and 6% in 2021. So the value and using a 6% cap equates to $37.5 million, and a 5% cap equates to $45 million. So now this sold in the third quarter of 2021, but interest rates had not yet been increased. The inflation was just being seen. So based on that, can you guess why this firm sold when they did? Well, my answer was they, like me, foresaw that we were going to have some serious issues with inflation, supply chains. Everything had been very obvious during 2020 and 2021. And what the Federal Reserve was going to have to do was also very obvious. So because of that, they saw this coming and they acted accordingly. So the interest rate on this mortgage was 4.09%, which is literally below the rate of inflation that we'd started seeing in 2021. So with inflation a little bit higher than this interest rate and the impetus of more inflation to come already being sown in the economy, they put this property on the market within a couple of months of seeing or foreseeing what the Federal Reserve was going to have to do. And so though neither cap rates nor interest rates had yet to measurably respond yet, they were going to. And so that is one of the reasons for this channel, by the way. Policies have impacts, and these impacts are foreseeable. And in many cases, these policies are foreseeable. So anyway, it was easy to see, that interest rates are going to take off in 2021, and in 2022 they did. Of course, it'll take until 2024 or even later before they reflect everything that has been done just through mid-2023. So we don't really know where everything will truly settle yet. That said, this asset and the value add strategy, they were all well executed, and they did very well with this property. So, and lastly, how about where is the value on this property today? Well, let's see. If you use most metrics or most common metrics, then the value should drop based on both the interest rate increases that influence, of course, and erode some of the potential cash flow in the future, and the increasing cap rates, because risk and the cost of money have both gone up. And so those are considered to be higher and are higher. But conversely, NOI has continued to increase because the potential rents have increased. Inflation continues to percolate through the rental market. Rents are increasing. So here's where the value should be solely from the projected income through the rental market and a cap rate, okay? So the current value should be about $33 million, which is almost 28% lower than what it sold for in 2021. Again, that's solely based on the higher income and the higher income and the higher cap rates. So otherwise, the real loss due to rates changing would have been somewhat higher here. Now, the massive shift in shifts in cap rates and in income will not necessarily cause a lender to view the property at a value 28% lower, nor will an appraiser come to conclude that the value solely on the income capitalization approach is lower, or I mean, overall the value based on the income capitalization approach should become that much lower. If you've seen some of the videos on my channel, you'll know about appraisal weighting, and I bring that up. You got to know that an appraiser will come to two viable value conclusions for this property type. One is via the income capitalization approach, and the other is via the sales comparison approach. And those will be reconciled into a single estimate of value in their conclusion. So the lender will likely see and be concerned about that income approach being about 28% lower, but the sales comparison approach will be indicating a higher value for a while. It takes some time before the market can fully digest the changes that have happened within a market due to the higher interest rates, et cetera, and it will gradually adjust the values. So, and not to leave this on a somewhat depressing note like that, but that's something our real estate and financial markets must work through. However, the return earned in either of the success stories I've shown in this case, whether it's the 2017 sale or the 2021 sale, are going to happen again. They are repeatable. The market is in turmoil a bit, but it's creating new and different opportunities. Somebody is going to feel pain during this. But the market will find a new equilibrium when it heals. There is a reversion to the mean or median based on all the market forces being allowed to organically reconcile, presuming they're allowed to organically reconcile. And we are on the verge of some real opportunities here, truly. We need to prepare ourselves, because someone's going to benefit, and I prefer it to be me personally, but I hope it's all of us. So, again, buckle up, buttercups. We're about to see some turmoil, but then we're going to see some tremendous opportunities as well. So a quick summary here to wrap up this video. In part one, we covered the salient facts of the property, some terminology definitions, some insight into the market within that first video, again, the first part, as well as general strategy, the measure used to define return and describe the process in detail. Then in part two, we looked at the repositioning strategy a bit more closely, some issues we look for in modeling the return, and then move move toward the purchase and forecast of that eventual sale. In part three, we covered the projected numbers and the real returns from the actual sale. And in part four of this video, we covered what happened with the asset when it sold again in 2021. And, I don't know about you, but I find this to be amazing stuff. Of course, I'm a numbers guy, and this stuff really juices me up. Just so you know, Atosha Global Analytics, along with Atosha Property Group, we provide analysis of fundamental economic drivers, analyze and financially model real estate for acquisition. We do portfolio analysis, assist with financial structuring of assets, portfolios, and budgeting demands for multifamily properties. Our channel is dedicated to empowering you, those of you who function in real world, what we like to call the street level, and providing you with the tools to sift through the weeds here. To find what really shapes markets, reliably forecast what will happen, and to ultimately succeed. If this has been helpful to you, please like and subscribe so that you will not miss any upcoming content. By the way, our weekly features will be restarting again soon. The most sought after, the one I got the most feedback on, is Forecast Fridays. And this is just one example. We'll show you, the underlying data and unique metrics that usually moves the data everybody typically relies on in order to forecast where the economy is going before it would be actually indicated through other sources. So well before it's reported elsewhere, Also, feel free to tap into some of the resources we have available on the channel. We've got a case study of an office building during the last crisis and recession, which shows you how the market is likely to handle a similar challenge in the future. And it's already beginning to. And we see that reflected, a similar approach is actually reflected in a survey of what's going on with new home builders. New home builders are currently keeping their prices relatively high, but they're throwing everything, including kitchen sinks, literally into the mix in order to provide discounts that keep and support that higher sale price. You get a lot of free stuff now that you weren't getting before. So anyway, that is something that is of incredible benefit. You know, we also have a 5-part series on how much should a house be worth, and this shows you how the market accounted for the distortions in the marketplace in the last cycle historically, you know, and applies that to the last few years so we can foresee where and when pricing aligns with real value, because there's real value here and it's currently out and unsupported at today's value levels. You know, so the series shows how where I should say inflated value currently resides within the market components. What anchors the real value in single family residential real estate? What fundamentally anchors the real housing market overall? You know, what reversion to the mean and or median really looks like in our housing market. And lastly, I'll show you how to determine that for your own locale. So this will work where you are. Literally, this shows you how and to generally know where the price for a home should be in your area so that you don't pay too much or wait too long. And by the way, lastly, if you want to know how to professionally analyze the financials of real estate and model it for acquisition, really in a professional method, we have 2 programs coming soon. The first will empower you to go out and acquire properties, you know, with the second focus really more on advanced modeling techniques to assist with complex properties and financially managing them throughout the holding period. Now, the majority of the instruction in these courses is exactly what was covered in similar courses I completed at Harvard in 2017 and 2018 when I was getting my master's. So this was the best program of its type in the country at that time and still is. And I combined it with some of my own experience and expertise and expanded the some of the features within the underwriting shell to where it is absolutely as good as anything you find in the industry right now. So the value in these courses is really incredible, or in these programs is really incredible. And of course, you'll pay a fraction of what I did because I don't have the Harvard name on my courses. So, but you will walk away with the knowledge you need and a functional underwriting shell to do what you need to do at a professional level. So keep an eye out for the upcoming announcement on that first program. And with that, I want to say thanks so much for sharing this journey with me, and I look forward to continuing the journey with you in the near future. See you in the
Tosha Global Analytics was created to provide insight and foresight into the street-level impacts of macroeconomics, real estate and finance trends, and the policies that shape them. What is happening in the financial world today shows us that those of us on Main Street are in a street fight for our financial futures. In order to win this fight, we need to become truly streetwise.